Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the football club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Martin Tiffen.
It's the preview show, and this week the Blues travel south to face one of the promotion favourites, Milton Keynes. The much fancied Dons have had a tough start to the campaign. Can Paul Simpson's men compound their misery more on Saturday? And we're discussing this week's show. And of course, not only are we going to be talking about looking ahead towards the MK Dons game, we're going to be talking about a new signing, aren't we, Adam?
Yeah.
Finally.
Well, we thought something might happen this week. I know Simpson had said he'd hoped to have something sorted by midweek. He was right in that. I don't know how I missed it though, because I was out all day yesterday and got to 6:30. Didn't see anything. 7:15, and I saw the timeline just blowing up with Carlisle United related stuff to do with Dominic Sadie. So yeah, very happy to have this one sorted.
Yes, well, we'll talk about Dom in just a minute. But firstly, obviously, a reminder of all the usual stuff. So obviously today we'll be previewing that game. But just a reminder, we're not going to be doing Behind Enemy Lines today because it's a point of principle that I'll talk about in a minute, but we won't be doing that. But just a quick one then. Our sponsors are the Carlisle United Supporters Trust, and here's a little message from them about what they're all about.
Carlisle United Supporters Trust is your voice in the boardroom. Join today to help shape the future of the club. Member benefits include 10% discount in the Blue Store, ticket priority for big games, a chance to win an exclusive boardroom experience for you and a guest with food, drinks and a picture on the pitch, a chance to win entry into one of the new East Stand lounges for you and a guest, a monthly draw for junior members to win signed merchandise, discounts in the Trust Online store, the chance to vote in the AGM and in-member surveys to influence the future of the Supporters Trust and Football Club. Visit our website at www.CUST.org.uk for details.
Yeah, that was good, isn't it? Very professional sounding, wasn't it?
Very grisly delivery.
That's Jack Oddiott, who's a Blues fan. He's done a couple of bits for CUST. Is it CUST? CUST, I think it is now, I suppose. CUST, we'll call them anyway. He's done a couple of bits for them, and we got them sent over in midweek. So it means I don't have to think about what I'm going to ramble on about each time now. Instead of, I could write it down, that would be the obvious thing to do, but actually getting a professional to do is the best option of all. So there you go. Thank you very much, Jack, for sorting that. Thank you, CUST, for CUST. I've got to stop calling that. CUST for their support this season. Really, really appreciate it. AFL Fantasy League, a bit late now because I was going to tell people get your team this weekend, but actually there's a game tonight, isn't there? So
Is there?
Yeah, Thursday night football in League Two.
I'm glad you reminded me. I think I have changed my team, but
yeah,
need to double check.
Notts County against Grimsby. So
is it that one?
Yeah. Thursday night football. Who on earth thought that would be a good thing to put on a Thursday
When they
night?
played on Notts County played on Sunday as well.
Yeah, they're getting a few early on and they're getting their games moved out, which is not. I don't think it's particularly fair having one club getting all their games moved about on them. To be fair, but there you go. As one of the bigger clubs in the division, kind of to be expected, I guess. I suppose. Yes, so EFL Fantasy League, just go and look up that and the details. We'll talk about that on the review show about how everyone's got on. Kofi, little reminder for that. If you want to help us out, really, really appreciate the people who've contributed so far. It's really helped in terms of covering some of the studio costs over the next month or two. Really, really appreciate that. It's basically where you can tip us any amount you want. You don't have to, but if you want to. We'll keep doing it. Basically, is what we're saying. Is we're not needing the money desperately, but if people have asked, could they contribute? And so we've sorted something out. So if you want to do that, go to ko-fi.com. That's kofi.com. ko-fi.com/Brunton Bugle, and you find all the details there. And if you want to get in contact with us, generally just about anything, you can find us on X at Brunton Bugle. We're also the same handle on Instagram, and we're on Facebook as well. And if you want to email us the old-fashioned way, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, before we get into what we're doing for the first half, let's do the news bit then, Adam. So, yep, as we mentioned in the intro there, the Blues have got a midfielder in finally.
I know,
and we've had to be patient. Simmer's been wanting to get extra body in. He's waited his time, and finally he's got his man this week, and it's Dominic Sardi. Sadie?
I thought it might have been Sadie. I wasn't sure, but yeah, very happy to have him in, because we just needed somebody in that midfield who was a different profile to what we had. Just because Needs must have had to play Barkley, Neil, Vela, who all have good qualities in their own right, but they're not the attacking threat you'd maybe hope to have in the middle of the midfield. But yeah, I'm very pleased that they've finally got this done, and I think it's good. The noise that's come out about what he's heard about the club before joining, and him being influenced by that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a bit of the background on him if you don't know already. 20-year-old attacking midfield. He signed on a season-long loan from Bournemouth. Started out at West Ham United. Didn't quite make it there. Had a spell at Wingate and Finchley in the non-league circuit before joining the Cherries at the start of last season. He's actually already made his Premier League debut for them. And also featured in a League Cup game where I think he assisted a really good cross for a goal, wasn't it, against Norwich in the early rounds of the League Cup last season. As you mentioned there, he got a bit of background info on the club from his teammate from Bournemouth, Daniel Aduajay. Gave him very much a recommendation to come up here. But also on the flip side, Aduajay gave him a bit of a character reference of Simmer, didn't he? Yeah,
which is, I think, not a bold thing, because obviously he's doing it in private, but this... Dan's 19, isn't he? Mm-hmm. With his train tracks, basically telling his teammate about Simpson, whether he's a good manager or not, holding that position, which is, I rate it. He's not holding back. I mean, I think his start to life, getting minutes and obviously scoring against Barrow will have helped his recommendation in our favour. But it's good though that we're forming a different relationship with the club, because for so many years, obviously it was Crystal Palace, maybe Fulham, who were the targets. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. We can only seem to get players on loan from clubs down south. We don't seem to get them from Manchester or Liverpool or the North East, really, do we? It's a bit frustrating that, but maybe that'll come with time, I guess. But yeah, interesting. I wonder if as well that's influence there when you say about the fact that Aduajay has got minutes, where he's basically said to Dom that, look, we've only got 2 midfielders fit really at the moment, so you're probably going to get game time early on, and if you can play well, you're not going to lose your place in the team, essentially.
Yeah.
I wonder if that had a little bit of influence in there, possibly.
Yeah, and Bournemouth probably will have been more encouraged to send him our way because of the minutes, even though it's been early, that Aduajay has got as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So he mostly plays as a number 10, but he can also play out wide, which is, I think that's probably the thing I'm most pleased about from bringing him in as well, because we've lacked a player who can do that. Obviously, we had Jordan Gibson who could do that last season, but to bring in Aduajay now, he's going to be able to do that, and he's going to be able to play as that number 10, and he might give us that option actually to switch to 4-3-3 during the game and push Big John into midfield again. So, look, I know some people get annoyed about that, but actually, it's a good tactic to have if you can't quite break through. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I might be chief of that list.
Yeah. But also he was captain of their under-21 side. There's a clip I shared on the Brunton Bugle Twitter. If no one's seen it, go and have a look at it there. Where I think it's Alan Connell, I think, isn't he? He's the coach of the Bournemouth under-21 side. He's in the dressing room at a pre-season thing, and he's given an explanation as to why he's been made captain for the under-21s for the pre-season games. Because I think there was an expectation that he might travel with the first team like Aduajay did to feature for them in America, but he didn't get the chance, but he didn't sulk about it. He just knuckled down and carried on, and they were clearly very impressed with him, weren't they?
Yeah, you could tell that from the video that the manager was praising him for the fact, like you say, that he'd not been disheartened by the fact that he wasn't taken across to America with the first team, that he'd got on with his work. And that's sort of, I mean, I know a lot of maybe older players, former players, bash the younger players of today for their attitude and things like that, because it probably is a little bit easier for them now in terms of they can get their way a bit more. They don't have to fight and scrap for position as much. But that was a good sign that someone of he's not particularly young for the loanies of today. They said he's turning 21 pretty soon. But it's nice to see that in a young player, that he's got that sort of attitude where he's not going to let something like that affect him, and he's going to carry on with his work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The impression I've got so far from watching some of the clips of him as well, he's very tidy on the ball. He looks a really good little player, and I think the big thing is as well, he's going to offer us something different, which is the main thing we've been asking for, because we've got plenty of midfielders who can do the sort of battling job and do the general sort of shift in there. We need someone who with a bit of guile and a bit of craft, and I think he's potentially going to bring that to us, isn't he? I think with the way he plays, so very exciting. We'll discuss whether he should go straight to the team or not later when we're talking about the United lineup for the weekend game. So as we go on, so basically we are not doing the behind enemy lines in this episode. Now, this is a sort of principal thing about the whole fact that we're playing MK Dons this weekend, and I know some people might say, "Oh, well, why aren't you, why aren't you boycotting the game altogether?" Well, we're not, because it is a league game and it still counts, and that's it. The way this is our little stance of like, no, we're not going to stand for it. So, this is a decision that I suppose the one in charge, I suppose I took really in the sense, but yeah, because I saw someone.
I support you.
Yeah, very good, Adam. Thank you. And so did Dan definitely did, didn't he? And Mike as well. So yeah, it's a decision we took. And I saw someone the message was saying about, they were a bit disappointed about it. And I do get that, to be fair, and that's fair enough. Well, hopefully when we chat about MK Dons ourselves, we can make up for it a little bit. But basically, what we're going to do this week is something a little bit different. Where I'm going to be speaking to Pete Scholes. Now, Pete Scholes is a Blues fan, and if you don't know already, Pete has written a book about the highs and lows of following Carlisle United over 50 years old, I think he said, over the last 40 years, basically called The Place That I Belong. It's available in the club shop now, and you can get it online on Amazon. He sent me over a copy. I've had a good little read through as much of it as I can before I speak to him, and it's really good, to be fair. Really, really, really interesting. Some nice little memories. Some other Blues fans have shared little bits to go there. So I had a little chat with Pete about writing the book and what it means to be a Blues fan for him. So basically, here's the chat I had with Pete. I'm going to take a short break now, and then we'll be back with that. And then obviously after that, we'll be back to talk about the MK Dons game.
This is John Mellish. You're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Yes, we're now into part 2 of this week's Brunton Bugle, where, as we said, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to be speaking to an MK Dons fan. We're going to speak to a Carlisle fan instead. And it's a Carlisle fan who's got a book out, and that Carlisle fan is Pete Scholes. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm very good, thanks, Lee. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thank you for coming on. So, let's just start things up, get straight into it. So just give us a bit of your sort of general background. Obviously, I know from having read a bit of the book, I haven't had a chance to read it all, but I've had a good read through a fair chunk of it. It's really, really good. But just give us a bit of your general background. Like, I know you're Carlisle born and bred, but I think, are you in exile these days, right? A bit like me?
I am a bit, sadly. Yeah, I'm based down in Lancashire. I've been on the go quite a while. Born in Carlisle, brought up in Carlisle, in Bellevue South Side. I went up to university in Paisley near Glasgow, back to Carlisle, and then I've been a bit of an exile since, living down in London, Bedfordshire, Yorkshire, and now I'm Lancashire. Slowly creeping my way back home.
Okay, slowly but surely we're making your way back up to Cumbria. Now, obviously, you've written this book about Carlisle United, but you've actually written a few books before. What got you into sort of writing books, and tell us a little bit about why you decided to write one specifically focusing on the highs and lows of the Blues.
I've always loved to write, just for other people's pleasure, really, just to make people laugh. When I was at work, I'd be writing poems and short stories and just daft stuff, really. And then I wrote my first book on a bit of a dare, and it was a book in a pub, and somebody dared me to do something. So I thought, well, I've had a few pints, I'll try and rise to the challenge. And then that book started. So that was my first novel, called Conscience. And then it went down really well. So I thought, I'll have a go at something else. And I've now written 5, and I've got another couple on the go, and I've got a series of children's books and comedy scripts and anything, just anything really. I just get the bug and off we go. And in terms of the new one, The Place I Belong, it's something that I've been meaning to turn my hand to for quite a while. I've been a fan, like most people who are listening, since childhood, and so many stories to tell over the years. And I've read so many autobiographies, football related and biographies, and I've enjoyed some. Some have been really good storytellers, and I just kept thinking, well, I could have a go at this as well. And I'll try and put my story down as well, and hopefully it will resonate with other fans as well, who'd probably be able to relate to these stories and daft anecdotes and things like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what was your decision process in terms of, I suppose, what the book would be about? Obviously, you wanted to write a book about Carlisle United. Did you sort of decide from the start that it was going to be maybe not so much for? I think you sort of say early on in the book, don't you, that it's not like a series of match reports or, almost like a chronological order thing. It moves to different subjects, doesn't it?
It does, and I think there's a million books like that, and people far more qualified to write those kind of books than I am. I remember reading Fever Pitch. I've mentioned this before. Fever Pitch by Nick Hornby, many, many years ago, 20 years ago plus, and he was an Arsenal supporter, and he talked about his own upbringing, and it was really interesting, but he was coming at it from a different perspective, if you like, than mine. A team that's always been used to winning or up at the top end, is from quite a middle class family, went to Cambridge University, that kind of thing, and as far as I'm aware, there wasn't a similar book written about a team in the lower divisions, and like I said, I thought I had a few stories to tell, so I got pen to paper, if you like, and off we went.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed what I've read through of it so far. I'm obviously going to finish it off over the next couple of weeks. And as you mentioned there, you've got a few stories to share yourself, but it wasn't just you that wrote part of it, was it? Because you got fans to contribute their bits as well. You thought, let's widen this out to the whole fan base, because there's stories that you won't know about. So what sort of fueled that idea?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got so many stories to tell, and I thought it would be wrong of me just to limit it all to my experiences. For example, when I'm writing about away days, all the fans that travel away, home and away, have got stories and funny things to tell. And if I just limited it to myself, I would be doing the fan base a bit of a disservice, if you like. And so I opened it up on the message board, and I was quite blown away by the amount of people who wrote back to me and the amount of people that shared their stories. Some of them quite intimate ones as well, quite personal tales. And it was lovely to read them, and I'm very privileged that they trusted me to put them in the book.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I read a few of them, and I think obviously one that stood out to me is the story of Andy Hall and how he got involved in the media team. Someone who used to be my boss when I was working there, so it was nice to read through that. And hearing the Naki Wells story again, it did make me chuckle, because I remember that at the time, and it was a bit of a, oh dear, what's he done? but yeah, it you really get a feel, don't you, for like what this club means to the supporters, don't you, from those stories?
That's it. Andy Hall's a good example, actually, because I messaged Andy a while ago, and I used to write a page in the programme, and Andy sort of helped me out with that. That was many years ago, and so I wrote to Andy and said, would you like to contribute? And I said I didn't want to press on his time, and said 500 words to 1,000 words would be more than enough. So when he replied to me with, I think it was about 4,000 word contribution, it was obviously put so much time and effort into doing that, and I know he's a really busy man, so it was wonderful to get that. And other fans as well, like Colin Carter. I approached Colin Carter, obviously being on the tannoy when Jimmy Glass scored, and he kindly gave me 2.5 pages of the book. So many people have been so generous with their time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a family story for you as well, because you tell the story of how it's a family thing for you, isn't it? And I think that'll resonate quite well with a lot of fans, won't it?
I think so, yeah. I think I've talked about my dad quite a lot in the book. He's been going since the 50s. And my dad is just sports daft, Carlisle United daft. And eventually my mum just sort of fell into line. She realised that if she wanted to see more of us, let's go to Brunton Park. And she's been going for 20 odd years now, and part of the fabric of the club as well. And like I say, we've all worked for the club at doing something or other at one point, even selling programmes and runners, painting fences, whatever we could do, we would throw our hat in the ring, if you like.
Yeah. In terms of the the stories that are in there, is there in particular that were favourites that came through, either some of your own stories, but also some of the ones that you got sent in from the supporters?
Yeah, let me think. One of my best friends from university, Alistair Deacon, he has a couple of contributions in there, and I didn't know what Alistair would send back. Alistair's from Aberdeen, and when I've talked about the hooliganism, if you like, and the trouble that was going on back in the 80s and 90s, and I'm a hands up, I'm a coward here, and I would avoid a fight every which way possible, and Alistair's the same. Well, he told a couple of his own stories, and then later on in the book, when we were talking about famous people we've met, there was no better person to ask than Alistair. I'm not sure if you've got up to that point, Lee, but he tells a tale with Sir Alex Ferguson that will probably haunt Alex Ferguson until his last days. It certainly haunts Alistair.
Yeah, it's. I haven't quite got that far, but hopefully it won't take me too long. I mean, you mentioned there you were born around about the time we got promoted to the First Division, weren't you? And
I was, yeah.
But you obviously didn't start going until the early 80s. I mean, it is a period, I think we discussed this on the pod before, it's a period that doesn't actually get that, or down the years until quite recently, hasn't had that much coverage in Carlisle United history, has it really? Everyone focuses on that 70s period, but no one really focuses on the 80s. Now, obviously, in terms of the state of football generally was in at that point, it wasn't great, as you mentioned, hooliganism and issues like that. But for Carlisle United, we spent a few seasons in what is now the Championship, and we had the likes of Mally Poskett and Jack Ashurst and Peter Beardsley and Pop Robson playing for us. It was a good time to be a Carlisle fan in that sense, wasn't it?
Oh, fantastic, yeah. And even though I was just young, I was old enough to be able to appreciate the games. And I remember the two Newcastle United games, 2 seasons running. We beat them 2-0 at Brunton Park and 3-1 at Brunton Park. And we played them off the park. We beat Southampton when they were flying high with the likes of Peter Shilton in goals. And there was some good teams around. And we were punching above our weight. But what a team we had on the pitch under Bob Stokoe. Just a small squad, but every one of them was fabulous players, and it all seemed to come together around that early 80s time. So yeah, I agree. It's a period in the club's history that's a bit understated, isn't it? Unmentioned.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but recently we've been talking about how amazing all the changes we're seeing around Brunton Park are at the moment under Piatics. What would you say the biggest changes you've seen from when you first started going to watch Carlisle play from then to now?
The engagement with the fans now is absolutely fantastic, I would say. And looking at the fan zone, I was in there for the Barrow game, and there must have been 2,000 behind the West Stand there. And so many options, so many food options, beer options, and music going on. It certainly wasn't like that back when I first started. And money has always been tight, and ever since 1980s when I was going, it was tight. The club had low gates back then. The ground was always tarted up, if you like. There was never any major improvements made and things like that until Knighton arrived, and then he built a stand that was not in line with the pitch, and then left. And yeah, it's never really been invested in, if you like, and looked after, and that's the biggest difference now. It gives me hope that we can fulfil our potential for the first time in my lifetime.
Yeah, as I mentioned there before, you obviously started following the 80s, but I suppose that when you go into adulthood and that kind of thing, your peak period following Carlisle United, that mid-90s period when Knighton had taken over and we had that 94-95 season. What was it like following the club at that age then? Because for me, that was my first season following Carlisle United. My first game was the 3-0 win over Bury on 27th December. I mean, you couldn't pick a better game to have as your first game, really. But what was it like as an adult, a young adult, even going to those games and experiencing that buzz, the feeling it gave around the club at that time?
Well, I think to compare season to season, just before Knighton arrived, we were absolutely awful. And it was around about that time I was a programme seller, and I think I mentioned this in the book. You would barely sell enough programmes to make £1 commission, and if it wasn't for the free ticket to get in, there'd be no point in doing it. And crowds of 2,000 and things like that. And so when he arrived, for all his fanfare was of his own making, really, but he breathed some life into the club, and suddenly 2,000 crowds became 4, and then 6, then 8, and then the Bury game, I think there was 12 and a half, and the door locked. they couldn't get any more in. And for 2 or 3 years, it was absolutely magic that the buzz really was there, and it was such a contrast from what had been there a year or two previous to that. And sadly, as we all know, it ended badly. But that 94-95 season, winning the league, and with the likes of Curry and Reeves and Conway and other players of that ilk, we had a great team, and they were great to watch. And we used to go home and away expecting to win, and that's not that's not normally the mentality of us Carlisle fans. We go hoping that we'll get something, but we used to think, we're going to win today every time.
I mean, that was the disadvantage of me having that as my first game, is it was always going to be downhill from there, wasn't it? So as good as it got, really, but there you go. Just thinking back to what I was saying before about the fan contributions there, the thing that stand out to me, I sort of flicked through and just to have a look and see the names that are in there, is that I actually do recognise a lot of the names of people. Like I've met some of them on the others, I've interacted with them online, and it's weird, isn't it? You don't get that. I think you sort of mentioned this as a fan of like a big club, a Premier League club. I think you sort of briefly sort of touched on this in the book, that you don't get that feeling of real community. That it's weird that everyone knows each other, even though they don't really know each other at Carlisle United, do they? You see people at away games, like, oh yeah, I know him. There's the guy who's that mad jacket that you see at away games all the time, and things like that. It really gives you a feel of that sort of feeling about what it's like to support a club like this, doesn't it?
That's it. I think we've got so much potential. We've got the potential to be getting crowds of 15,000 if we manage right, and over the next couple of years. But it's also small enough, like you say, to be able to meet the same people each time at the game, and the ones you sit beside, the ones you meet in the car park outside, and away games, people that you can say hello to. It's a real community feel, and to be honest, I think that's how the Piatics have found it as well. I think they've been quite taken by the hospitality and the love shown by the fans. Long may that continue as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're right there. I think that's really something that the Piatics have bought into, and it's a weird one to sort of explain. Isn't it? Like you say, you'll go to the games. Sometimes you'll see people you only see them on those Saturdays when you go to those home games. Then come May, you're like, I'll see you in a few months.
Yeah.
And you don't see them for months. It's kind of, especially for me and you as exiles, we maybe don't get to see people as often, and it's weird. Like I'm thinking back, you might remember his name, Huey, who used to go in the paddock, the fellow with the big beard and big long hair.
Yeah.
He also sadly died a few years ago. The only time I'd ever see him, he's on a match day. But then you hear the news, he's passed away, and you do genuinely feel really sad, and you think, well, I only actually saw him every other Saturday when I was going to the matches, so it was kind of like, it's a weird what football does to you, isn't it, really, in terms of the connections it builds up.
It does, and I sit in B stand and been there probably about 20 years or so in there, maybe even a bit more, and exactly like you say, people come and go, and it's quite lovely when you come back in August and the same faces are there. The older guys, we will miss them when they go. But as you go in there now, it's such a nice community, and we all know each other in B stand to say hello to, and the same faces keep coming back, and that's lovely. And I'm sure it's the same in every other section of the ground as well. Like you say, when you go in the paddock, it's the same people on the same barriers, and it's quite nice. It's quite comforting.
But on the flip side, it's good to see the younger fans coming through now. And actually, that community they've built up in the Warwick Road, and especially the young lads like Sonny, who obviously has written a bit in the book as well, hasn't he? And actually, that's one thing I actually quite like about the Piatics have done, that they've actually focused on that, because that it's been such a neglected part of the ground, to actually say to the fans, actually, you know what, we value you. We're going to give you the facilities that you actually deserve to have in that end of the ground. Because look, we've all seen the photos of the Warwick Road end toilets posted on social media of other fans laughing at it. But there comes to a point where you need to actually improve that sort of thing, don't you?
Definitely. And I'd never met Sonny Kirkwood before, so I just sort of sent him a random message and asked if he would contribute, and he sent me a really great interview that's included in the book, and I really wanted to celebrate the work that they're doing, like you say, because they've made such a difference, and even down to the painting of the barriers and the volunteers that come in and things like that. It's been It's been brilliant, and they deserve to be celebrated as well, and long may it continue, and hopefully grow as well as more and more younger fans come back.
Yeah, an interesting one in there as well. You've just looking through here again. You've got some even contributions from opposition fans. You got the Oldham Groundhopper. There's a little bit in there, I think I've seen. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it's an away day. Carlisle is actually quite a well liked away day by opposition fans. I don't think people seem to realise it is almost a day out. It's a trip. It's a passage of rights, especially if you're a club from the other end of the country, aren't you? And I think sometimes we undervalue how much people actually enjoy coming up to Cumbria and watching games.
Well, that's it. Again, I don't know the lad, but I'm a member of his group, and whenever I go to away games, I'll put a few photographs on. And he always mentions Carlisle, and he even, on the 8th of May each year, he puts a Sir Jimmy Day for Jimmy Glass, and that's what prompted me to message him. And again, I was delighted when he answered a few questions for me. But yeah, it's exactly right. I think because we're quite a traditional ground and a long way, people tend to make a weekend of it when they come up, don't they? And we seem to have a soft spot for a lot of away fans as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. You've been very generous for your time here. I'm going to sort of start to wrap things up. I'm going to ask you a few sort of questions about your favourites down the years for Carlisle United, things like that. I mean, give us an idea of maybe one or two or three of your favourite Carlisle games you've been to. Put you on the spot there, haven't I?
Yeah. Like I said, if I'm going right back to the start, I seem to have vivid memories of the wins over Newcastle, and certainly the game against Southampton when we beat them 2-0 at home in the cup. I actually got told off by Peter Shilton. I got his autograph outside, and he told me off for chewing on a pen top and nearly swallowing it. So that remains in my mind. And then a few years later on, I think beating Preston down at Deepdale 3-0 when Knighton was starting to make his mark, if you like. We played them on the artificial pitch and beat them 3-0. I think the following year we beat them 3-0 again. So those games stand out. There's so many. There's even the defeats. You know, we've had some fun times. The defeats, we got beat 6-0, I think it was, at Rochdale one.
Rochdale, yes, I remember that one. Yeah,
and I remember Ian Adkins, the manager, and he was just in awe of the fans. Just they thought, well, we're getting thrashed. Let's just enjoy ourselves. And it was one of the best away atmospheres I've been in, even though we got a hiding.
Yeah, I think we literally for the last, I suppose, half an hour of that game, we were singing Ian Atkins Blew My Army, weren't we? Even as the third, fourth, and fifth goals were flying in the back of the net, it didn't stop. Literally, there was no stop for it. And if you go on YouTube, I think there's a clip somewhere from the Rochdale official video package commentary thing that actually I think even their commentators commented and said incredible support for Carlisle today and stuff like that, which is
it was
quite nice. Yeah,
I used to go under Roddy Collins as well. As you know, we were down at the bottom end. Shrewsbury away when we stayed up was amazing, and
yes.
But even Wrexham, I think it was the same season. I went down to Wrexham in a must-win game for us, and we got beat 6-0, I think.
6-1. I remember that.
6-1? Did we get one?
Yeah, I think Craig. No, it wasn't Craig. No, it was Brian Wake scored the consolation goal, I think, for us that day, if I remember rightly.
I was too busy crying then.
Dan's probably going to correct me on that, because me and Dan actually were playing for the Carlisle sports team that day, and I remember. See that game sticks in my head because that's a game where we went down, and I think we borrowed the youth team minibus that day, and we got driven down. Turned up at this random field where the Wrexham lads said there would be, and there was only 8 of them there, and they hadn't hired a pitch. They had no nets. We had to get nets out the back of our van and put them up. We had to bring the balls. I think we had to lend them a couple of players as well, and then we basically we ended up. I think I scored a hat-trick where 2 of the goals I charged down the keeper's clearance. Then afterwards we're like, right, well, where do we get changed or get a shower? It was like, oh, we haven't got anywhere. So what we ended up doing was driving around Wrexham, finding a local sports centre, and a load of us piled in and used the showers without paying or anything. While the rest of us went to the pub, and that day ended with a 6-1 defeat.
And that's what makes it memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a great day out in the sense of the football, but it's not always about that. And I do sometimes think, in the last couple of years, and I do think I don't want to say our fans are getting entitled, some of them, but I do think sometimes you have to say to them, look, good and the bad, the yin and yang, that's the way football works, and you've just got to enjoy the bad days and make the best of them as you can. And
there's a section in the book about away games towards the end, and you'll probably get up to then. And again, one of the most memorable games was a game away at Scarborough, and I think it was a 2-2 draw or a 1-1 draw when Dave McCreary was manager, and we were in the crappiest car known to man, and it couldn't get up Sutton Bank, and we were literally going up about 1 mile an hour with a 15-mile tailback behind us, and the tensions were fraught in the car where everyone was arguing who was the fattest and who needed to get out so the car could keep moving and things like that. And the game itself was almost an irrelevance, but the whole weekend was just fantastic.
I mean, that reminds me of a trip to Rochdale, actually. The game where we secure promotion under Simpson in 2006 at Rochdale 2-1 win. I was at uni in Preston at the time, and there was no way of getting back on the train after the game. And I'd managed to sort out a lift to take me back. But this person, I was going to be sitting in the boot originally, so I know there's a story there early on about you sitting in the boot, but this is 2006. As it was, this person, the other person who was going to be in the car didn't turn up. And then randomly we were driving down the back streets of Rochdale, and he just stepped out in front of the car. The driver was like, "Get in the boot, you idiot!" So we had to drive back over the moors back to Preston. So we went on the motorway, and no one spotted us. Yeah, it's just stories like that. Dan will know exactly who I'm talking about there because he knows the person as well. But yeah, it's
I'm familiar with boot travel.
Yeah, exactly. Who are your favourite Carlisle players? Give us your top 3 favourite. It doesn't have to be in any order, but your 3 favourite Carlisle players of all time.
I don't know why this player stands out in my mind when I was really young, but Paul Haig. He must have been. He must have gave me his autograph every game or something. But he always seemed to stick in my mind. But that team, we had obviously a few of the names mentioned: Russell Coughlin, Mally Poskett, Jack Ashurst, and through the years, Ian Bishop, David Curry, Paul Conway. I thought he was fantastic. Or Dean Wallen. Real cult figures.
Got to be Dino.
Yeah, then probably more recently, always like Jamie Devitt as well. Hackney. Yeah, there's so many really. Yeah, we can pick out. Not always the shining lights on. Michael Bridges, of course, he was just outstanding. Yeah, of
course. I mean, it's obvious one, that one, isn't it? Everyone's going to say that one, but yeah, you're right. Some of the more recent names similar for me. Like I really like Jamie Devitt. Dean Warning will still be my hero, and anyone who listens to the pod these days will know that Big John will always have a special place in all of our hearts on the Brunton Bugle. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, Pete. I really appreciate it. Just wrapping things up here, what do you think makes Carlisle United so special as a club? Because I know every fan thinks their club's special, don't they? They always think there's something special, but it does seem like there's no other club quite like Carlisle United. I think, obviously we are isolated. We are, further away from everyone else. Even like the likes of Plymouth, at least, have got Torquay and Exeter down the road. We are close to the border. We have that Scottish influence as well as the English influence. People move away from Carlisle like we did, to find work, but Carlisle United is that link back. So what in your mind makes Carlisle United so special as a club?
Well, because it's the only club for miles around. It's not just the match goers that it means a lot to. It's the whole city, and when Carlisle's on the rise, the whole city's on the rise. Not just the city, the county, and we've alluded to it before as well. It's a real community club. It's big enough to do well and progress, but it's also very much a community asset. Even when the floods happen, just look how everyone pulled together. And when Carlisle United suffers, the whole city suffers, and when Carlisle does well, the whole city does well. And it is the hub of the community, and it certainly means the world to me.
Absolutely. Pete, thank you very much for your time. Before you go, name of your book and where can people get it?
It's called The Place I Belong. It should be in the club shop. I think it's in Bookends in town, and it will be in Tully House soon. And it's also on Amazon as well, in paperback, hardback, and on Kindle as well.
Excellent. We'll stick a link up on the socials for people to get a copy of it. Lovely Christmas present for any Blues fans coming up. Nicely timed, isn't it, in the next few months? So
hopefully it should appeal to non-Carlisle fans as well.
Yeah.
That's my selling point anyway.
Absolutely. Well, no, you're right, because it's, I think, as you said, like lower league fans can really relate to a lot of the stories in there, and then it'll resonate really well for them. So yeah, definitely. Pete, thanks very much. Up the Blues, and here's to hopefully the Barrow result being a bit of a turnaround for our season. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. I won't be at Milton Keynes. I don't go there or Principal, but yeah, I'll be at Bradford and everywhere else. Hopefully, so.
You've got even stronger principles than we have, because we're not speaking to their fans, but we're still going to the game the weekend. So
okay.
Right, we're going to take a short break now, and then we're back with part 3, where myself and Adam will be looking ahead to the Milton's Keynes Dons. I don't like saying the Dons, but it doesn't feel right. The Milton's Keynes game this weekend.
Hi, it's Aaron Hayden, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Oh, we've got a new one, finally.
Finally.
Dan's lurking in the car park has paid off, hiding in his little bush. I was going to say sticking his dictaphone out there, but that sounds horrendous, so we'll leave it there. Yes, so thank you very much, Aaron, for speaking to Dan and getting us one of those. We're going to get a few more of them, I think. I think Dan said he'd potentially go down to the photo day as part of the CUST sponsorship, a couple of the players, so he's going to try and grab a few then if he can. Right, well, let's look ahead to it then. Thank you very much again to Pete, by the way, for the chat. Really, really appreciate that. Get his book if you haven't already. Well worth getting. You get it at the club shop before the Tranmere game next weekend. Right, before we actually look ahead to the Milton Keynes game, we're going to do Dan's regular under 5 question. So this is basically it's a quiz question. Essentially 3 clues we get, and Dan's trying to get us to guess a player who's played 5 or less games for Carlisle United, basically down the years. And the clues get progressively easier. So basically, your first clue is the hardest, second clue is the medium-ish, and the third clue we should be able to get on the third clue a lot of the times.
Well, we say that. Can I caveat this by going with the running theme of this podcast relating to my age, that I am not going to be very good at this, because we've done 2 so far, neither podcast of which I was on, but that I listened to, and I was hopeless with both. So
I'm trying to think, like Phil Gulliver. How old will you? That was 2002, I think it was, Phil Gulliver, when we had him on loan. So
I was born in 2002.
Oh God, that tells you all you need to know then there. Right, okay, let's move on very swiftly then. So here are the 3 clues that Dan has prepared for us for today's episode. So here's clue number 1.
I came on loan to Carlisle from a club who have won the Champions League.
Ooh.
Presuming it's English. Chelsea, Manchester City, Man United,
Chelsea,
Liverpool.
Yeah, now
Celtic.
No, yeah, we haven't had any from Celtic. I don't think any.
No, couldn't think so.
I mean, straight away, the first name that popped into my head when I heard the words Champions League winner was Manchester City and Jeremy Haylan. I think he played 2 games for us, and then he disappeared back to City. Went to Sheffield Wednesday. And I think he retired. Basically follow religion. He basically gave up football quite young, actually, as well. So it could be him, but it could be like Craig Rodden from Liverpool. It could be what's his name? Who is the Joe Dudgeon from Man United? I'm going to go Jeremy Haylan to start. Any particular you're going to pick out?
No.
Right, okay.
So, there's no point. I don't have any names that come to mind.
Jeremy Haylan, I'm going to go for my first guess. That's the first guess. So clue number 2.
My only league appearance for Carlisle was, in fact, my only league appearance in my career. Now, that applies to England only, and obviously the top 4 divisions.
Oh, nice. Ooh.
It could be Scotland, then.
Nah,
someone's played in Scotland, at least.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's someone who's going to have played in Scotland. I think Brad Young played more than 5 games for us, didn't he? I think
must have done.
If you count Aston Villa, I suppose, because it's European Cup rather than that. Only game he played in the Football League. Joe Dudgeon definitely played more.
Yeah, Brad Young definitely came off the bench more than once in the league.
Yeah. Who was the name of that? The left back we had from Man United? Ekamanga, I think it was. Belgian lad. I think he's left back or centre midfield. I know. I'm struggling with this one. It's good this. Only league appearance was... No, in fact, he played more than one game. I'm sure he did. Right, let me think. The Man United, there was definitely... Sean McGinty. And he only played, like, literally, I think he's got one of the shortest Carlisle United careers ever, like 30 seconds. And he came off the bench in that game.
Might be on something here.
Right, I'm going to go with Sean McGinty because he came from Man United, obviously. So that's my guess now. Sean McGinty, right. Here's clue number 3.
I made a move abroad and spent a couple of seasons in the League of Ireland.
Well, that's completely fair because he definitely didn't play in the League of Ireland.
I'm going to leave this one to you.
I genuinely, I think you stumped me once again, Dan. Well done. Because I could spend ages trying to rack my brains on this. But you know what?
We do have viewers who aren't here to listen to us.
You know what?
I'm
going to go with Craig. Originally, I said Craig Rodden was one of my answers, and I think he might have played in Ireland at some point. I think the only league club he played for was us, possibly. So I'm going to go Craig Rodden with my answer.
And the answer is Craig Rodden.
Yes!
I think he was a midfielder. He came on loan from Liverpool, came off the bench in a 4-1 win over Tranmere, but that was his only appearance, and without being disrespectful, he had off the pace at pro level. He did go to Accrington on loan, and when Liverpool released him, he got a short-term contract there, but I think he only made one FA Cup appearance. And then he went into non-league with Witton before going to Sligo in Ireland, where he had a good 2 and a bit years and played a few games. But he got released, and I think he ended up playing for Moseley and then just literally drifted off the scene. So, yeah, Craig Rodden.
Oh, pulled that one out of the bag at the end there. I'm
first one, isn't it?
I got Phil Gulliver on the last guess as well. So I've never managed to get it before the last guess now, which is annoying me. But then I'm going to put it out there. The clues he gives at the start are particularly vague at times. So
well, that's the point of it.
It is, but I mean, there's vague and there's vague. There you go. Right, MK Dons then against Carlisle United this weekend. 3:00 kickoff at Stadium MK. Yeah, MK Dons are one of the favourites to go up this season, and I think pretty much all of us predicted them to be top 3, didn't we? I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think so.
Some of us top, some of them second or third. Not had the best start though, have they? I think it's fair to say, Adam.
That's one way of putting it. They've conceded 9 goals. Obviously, one game against Watford's, championship opposition away from home, had a pretty strong team out. So that's more understandable. But they shipped 5 in that game. But then 2 against Colchester and 2 against Bradford. Yeah, they've sort of, I would say, continued their form from the playoffs, but I think their form from the playoffs was actually worse. So, they've not started how probably most people would have expected to. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair on them as well, it is actually not the easiest start in the world for them. I mean, quite similar to us in a sense, actually, when you look at it. Because Bradford are a team that, with the investment they've had down there, you'd expect them to probably be up there. Colchester, we all expect to be a dark horse and do a lot better this season, and that's looking at a decent shout. I know we're only 2 games in, but the suggestion seems to be. And then they've got to face us, and we are a tough team to be facing, with the investment we've had as well. So, I'm just having a look at, if you go on the BBC site, you can actually see some of the stats from this season so far, and the averages and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm looking at it here. We've conceded the same number of goals each. We've conceded 4, albeit they all came in one game. We've had a few more shots than them, the same number on target, more off target, obviously. Passing accuracy is the interesting one. Their passing accuracy is 85.42%. Ours is only 64%, but that is a big improvement what we've had in previous seasons, isn't it?
Yeah, which really doesn't speak highly of what we've done in previous seasons, because 64% isn't brilliant. But that's how the game's probably going to pan out. I know we're probably fast forwarding a bit here, but they're going to control the ball for much of the game. I wouldn't expect us to be heavily dominating possession like we did at times against Barrow and Gillingham. So this is going to be a game where we're going to have to pick our moments, I'd say. Yeah,
I mean, when you look at the MK Dons transfer business over the summer, I mean, I was going to say which ones stand out for you, but there's 2 or 3 really top class signings there, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I picked Liam Kelly to be my player of the season for this campaign, just because of what he did with Crawley and obviously coming into this MK Dons team. But Tommy Lee, but he was on the bench for them last week, which is just mental. Yeah. Luke Offord from Crewe, Lemony Evans from Stockport, Lawrence Maguire, Callum Hendry, so many. I mean, they did lose a few. Obviously Ethan Robson come to us. We've not seen him fully yet. But Max Dean going to Ghent was a big loss. But they got a lot of money for him. Yeah. And Warren O'Hara too, who O'Hara, sorry, is it O'Hara or O'Hara? I can't actually remember.
I might have misspelled that on the running order, so I apologise if I have done. I'll have a little look.
But he was another good defender for them, even though their defensive record last year wasn't brilliant.
Yes, it
was O'Hara.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, they've generally had a positive window. It's just not really been reflected. The one thing I think though is they're a bit like Chelsea, where they've got so many attacking midfielders, wingers, but they don't have like a true number 9.
Yeah, they're not quite as bad as Chelsea in terms of squad numbers, but they have got about, I think, 31 players in their first team squad. Now, about 5 or 6 of them maybe are basically first-year pro players, who are in there as they've been promoted from the under-18 level. But still, even so, it does look a bit bloated in midfield, doesn't it? Like you say, you look there and think, how are they going to fit all these in? You look through here. I mean, Connor Lemonhay-Evans, Tommy Lee, Alex Gilby, even Joe Pritchard, Aaron Nemane. I presume they want, because they signed him quite late on from Notts County, so he's someone they're going to want to use a lot. Tom Carroll, Liam Kelly, MJ Williams. There's a lot of good midfielders in there, and keeping them all happy is going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see what formation, not formation in terms of how they're going to set up, but which choice of midfield is probably a better way of phrasing it, they're going to use against us, because I don't know whether it was through injury, but Liam Kelly didn't play in their last game against Colchester, which I thought was a bit odd. It just seems like he'd be a bit of a marquee signing for them, someone that would come straight into that team. They played Luke Offord in central midfield by the looks of it.
I'm not sure they did. I think that might be a mistake from Soccer Base. Sorry, they've got him listed as a midfield thing. I think
it's on here as it's on SofaScore as well as the same thing. So
interesting.
And they had Dean Lewington playing at left centre back, which he was from his heat map. He definitely was playing there. And Luke Offord, who was brought off for Tommy Lee, so he might have actually been playing in centre mid. It's just, it was a bit of a weird lineup, to be honest, especially with the options they have. They had Lemony Evans on the bench and Tommy Lee too, so they didn't need to play him Offord in centre mid if they did. Yeah, it's probably one of those situations, like you say, though, where they've got just too many options, almost.
Yeah, you do wonder if maybe one or two of them might leave towards the end of the window, possibly as well, maybe just to freshen things up a little bit for them, I guess. But yeah, 2 games in the league, 0 points. But I think the expectation is that they'll sort themselves out eventually, because in Mike Williamson, they've got probably one of the, but probably one of the most highly rated managers in the lower leagues, isn't he? I mean, he did an incredible job at Gateshead on next to no budget, and has really built a reputation up as someone who gets his team to play good football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of the bigger prospects in terms of managerial ones in, like I say, in the lower leagues. It's just, the transformation they had, because they didn't start particularly well last season. Then he came in, and I think from the point that he came in, they were the best team in the league. I'm pretty sure they were the best team across the season at home, which is going to present quite a challenge for us next season. They were third at home, so one of the better teams playing at Stadium MK. They're going to be, despite their poor start, a tough opposition throughout the season. Whether we're catching them at a good time or a bad time is debatable, because you could say, they're a bit of a wounded animal and trying to fight back from this poor start. But then you could also obviously argue they've not started well, and this is a good chance to capitalise them while they're a bit off form.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm just looking through here. Who stands out for you, really, as the people to watch out for in their squad, then?
I think one of the players that has started the season well is Gilby, Alex Gilby. I think he got 2 goals in the first game. Well, maybe not 2 goals, because then he scored 1. But he definitely has scored this season. I'm interested to see what Tom McGill, their keeper, does, because he's on loan from Brighton, and Brighton have been pumping out some brilliant goalkeepers over the last couple of years. So I think he'll probably follow in that mould of ball-playing goalkeepers.
I mean, their backup goalkeeper as well is Craig Gilvray, isn't it? Who's the lad who we were looking at the same time as Harry Lewis last season, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went to Stevenage in the end, did you not?
Yes, he did, yeah. And obviously I'm not signing permanently, but yeah, so interesting one with him. Yeah, Dean Lewington, you mentioned there, 40 years old, still playing. He has played for both Wimbledon and Milton Keynes, the only player remaining from that. He played at both, I think he played at Selhurst Park, he's played at the Hockey Ground and at Stadium MK for them. So he's got a rarity in that. I mean, look, in terms of, putting aside the whole issue of the MK Dons thing for now, in terms of just longevity, if you look at his stats, they're quite incredible. He's played over 800 league games in his career now. I think I'm just looking here, 788 league games for MK Dons, 48 FA Cup games, 28 League Cup games, and 46 other. So, I think he's pushing close to 1,000 appearances in all competitions soon, which is just remarkable, isn't it, really, in this day and age?
You don't get players like that anymore, just because these players are pushed so much to the limit that it's so hard for them to maintain. Obviously, like, sports science is better, so some of them who are right at the top can go for longer. But, when you're pretty much all year round near enough the peak physical performance that you can get from your body, it's going to take a toll. So he's done incredibly well to get to 40 and still be playing.
Yeah, and the thing is that when you're playing centre-back, it can be easy to do that. We saw that with Clint Hill, didn't we, a few years ago, where sometimes if you're smart enough and you know when to make the runs and things like that, when to let players go, you can actually get through the games quite easily if you read the game really well. So and he's that kind of player, to be fair in him. I think the one area when I look at the team where they may be lacking a little bit is up front, isn't it? I just look at it. I mean, Callum Hendry's a decent signing, but he's not a blow you away sort of striker, is it? And Ellis Harrison's okay, but it's maybe an area where they're lacking after the sale of Max Dean, aren't they?
Yeah, they just don't have, they don't have someone like a Charlie Wyke, a standout number 9 who, you can rely on to get goals. But maybe that's part of their strategy. Maybe they want, somebody who's a bit more capable in terms of the interplay and somebody who's going to be able to link up with those behind them a bit better. That would sort of make sense with bringing in Callum Hendry, because he's not really an out-and-out number 9. He's sort of a 9.5, as they refer to the ones who are sort of in between being a striker and an attacking midfielder. But I think it'll be interesting to see how they match up against our 3 physical centre-backs, whatever combination we use, because I doubt they're going to be going, back against them. I think they're going to drop in, and then one of our centre-backs is going to have to do a lot of work in the midfield to try and cover them.
Which you imagine will be Big John, probably.
Yeah.
based on past experience. Right, well, let's talk a little bit about some of the other bits and pieces, like the officials this weekend. So, referee, Farai Halam, from Essex. It's a really interesting story because it's... He started out as an apprentice at Stevenage, as an actual player. Never made it, but then moved into officiating. It's actually his first season as an EFL referee, but he's only taken charge of 8 games in total at this level. He generally referees in sort of the National Leagues, the Women's Super League and Premier League too. But he also works as a senior referee officer at the FA, and he helps create links between clubs and the officials to make sure that they understand and what the real changes are and things like that. So yeah, obviously unsurprisingly the first time he's taken charge of a United game, but quite an interesting one that is, because you don't hear that much, do you, about especially as a young player, if you don't make it, your chance to stay in football, isn't it? And some people just don't take that, and it's an interesting route.
Well, you hear a lot about footballers saying, they need to get... Well, I don't think it's as common a thing anymore, but people who do say you need to get more footballers involved in the rule-making and the refereeing side of things. But like you say, it's not really a transition that's made often, especially by those who are close to becoming professional. But it'll be interesting to see how he sees the game, or whether he's, sort of typical referee that's, to the rule, rather than maybe interpreting the game sort of as he sees it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think, if I remember rightly, he left Stevenage about 13 years ago, so it's not like he's a recent player who's come through the things. He's had to slowly work his way up, and I think he was playing on Saturdays and refereeing on Sundays, working his way up to actually referee then at the lower non-league level, and then got the job working with the FA. So, yeah, quite an interesting one, that one. Interesting to see how he gets on. in terms of head-to-head, it's the 15th meeting between the two sides. United have won 7, one's been a draw, and MK have won 6. United have been beaten in both of the last 2 games against MK, including a 2-0 defeat at Stadium MK in late 2018. I seem to remember, I think this was a game where John Sheridan threw his toys out the pram after the match, possibly. Had a bit of a sulk on the radio. I know one of many, I know, but I seem to remember that happened. And then I think pretty much we went on a 6 or 7 game winning run straight after that. Which
you might be right, actually.
It sticks in the head for some reason. The last win we had in Buckinghamshire came in October 2013, where Lewis Guy scored the only goal against his former club to give the Blues all 3 points in a 1-0 victory. I've got a couple of more bits and pieces here. I'm just trying to find them. I had them open a minute ago. In terms of other stats and whatnot. United have alternated between losing 4 times and winning 3 in their last 7 previous visits to MK. So that's not a bad record, that, to be fair, is it really? You know, when the last 7
away
visits
from home, it's not bad at all.
To win 3. If we could win this one, it'd be 4 wins and 4 losses there. So I'd be pretty pleased with that, to be fair. Basically, I think that by the looks of things, MK Dons have lost in each of the last 2 opening league games of the season and will be looking to avoid losing 3 successive league outings for the first time since February 2023. So that's quite a while, actually, isn't it, to have 3 defeats in a row? So there you go. Let's talk about United then. What are we thinking of this one? Because you also got the new lad in, Big Dom, or Little Dom. I'm not sure how tall he is, actually, didn't he? Look at that.
Medium-sized Dom.
Possibly, yeah. Do you change that midfield and bring him straight in, or do you stick with it? I've got more thoughts on this, so I'm interested to see what you think first.
I think purely because of the opposition for this game, there's got to be a bit more consideration. Simpson has said that he's fit and will be up to match fitness to start straight away, so that shouldn't be a concern. It's not somebody who we're going to have to bed in. But just purely because we're probably going to be off the ball a lot, and I don't know fully what his defensive work rate's like. Obviously, we're hoping it'll be a good one. They may be tempted to stick with Ben Barkley in midfield and keep that more defensive option rather than bringing in a number 10. But with that said, you can certainly make the argument for the opposite, which is in the chances that we are going to have, we're going to need to be efficient with them. We're going to need to take the opportunities that we get presented with because we're not going to have the ball for the majority of the game, I'd suggest. So having someone like him in midfield might help us in that regard. So I don't think it's as clear-cut as some might make out, but I can certainly understand both viewpoints. I'm just going to sit on this fence.
Yes, very much sitting on the fence there, but I'll put it out there. I think we should stick with it. I think, for now, stick with the lineup that started against Barrow, providing Terrell Thomas is fit, which we'll come on to in a second. But yeah, in terms of midfield, at the moment, I'm inclined to stick rather than twist. I just feel like they're getting a bit of an understanding in there. I think turning it into a battle is something that MK Dons won't particularly like. They're not the biggest midfield in there, so having 3 big physical lads in there causing them problems might really play to our benefit, especially if we can get the 2 wing backs bombing up and down. It's quite a big open pitch there, and I just feel like that Davis and Williams can actually benefit a lot from that. Defence then, so it sounds like Terrell Thomas is sort of touch and go for this one. Obviously, he had to come off at half time against Barrow. Simo suggested that they're going to wait and see tomorrow because he hasn't really trained all week. And the fact he hasn't trained all week shouldn't really be that much of a concern if he is fit, because he's at the age where he knows how to manage that, isn't he? I guess.
Yeah, it's a week's training that he's missed out on. It's not like we're in pre-season and he's trying to get his fitness up. I know not everybody's fully match fit, but then they're getting closer to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's touch and go as to whether he'll feature. If he's out, I guess Sam Lavelle just comes straight in, or do you potentially then you could drop Barkley in and put Hayden in the middle and do it that way?
I think again, having that midfield option opens up other options and other doors for Simpson to use, because otherwise we wouldn't have had the choice to put Barkley in defence. I don't think he would. I think he'd stick with Lavelle. he quite likes Lavelle. Obviously, the fact that he's made him club captain, and he was the sort of first port of call when Thomas did come off. It wasn't an option of putting Mellish into midfield and then bringing Barkley back or anything like that. So I'd expect him to put Lavelle in that situation, but. Yeah. It is another tricky one to handle because, especially with hamstrings in football, it's one you don't want to mess with too much. So it's whether they decide to err on the side of caution or whether Thomas says, no, I'll be fine. I don't think he's got any history of bad hamstring issues, so that will help the decision. But again, it's another decision that probably isn't as clear cut as some might make it out to be.
No, absolutely. In terms of other injury bits and updates, Simmer gave a bit of an update that on this afternoon. So Colin Guy, they're hoping for sort of towards the end, I think sort of start of October, he could potentially start to be involved again, which is really good news. It's 4 or 5 weeks ago maybe. That's really good to hear. It's similar with Jack Robinson. Dudek is back in training, but I suppose he might go down as the extra man this weekend because we'll explain how the bench is going to change slightly the weekend in a minute. McGeoch and Harper are going to be back in training hopefully by the end of next week, which could then lead to them being involved either for the Tranmere game or the Trophy game the following midweek. And Robson and Charters are still a fair way away, aren't they, I think, from being involved. Mm-hmm. So on the bench, Allen and Hevington are probably going to drop out, we think, don't we?
Yeah, you'd suspect with Armstrong being back after his wife's birth or giving birth to the child. Yeah. I don't know if
little boy.
Boy was
today.
it? I didn't see anything about it.
Yes, Simo made some interesting comments about it for to News and Star to John Coleman. I think he said that it's the best he's trained all week. He's all since he signed for us. Said he's clearly buzzing and he's giving him a real lift. So, excuse me, that's really good to see. And it seems like Simo's but yeah, he's going to be involved, and actually, it sounds like he's quite encouraged by the idea I could throw him on early on here, and actually we can cause problems. I don't have to wait till the 70th minute or something like that. So,
yeah, I agree with that because he's more so the type of forward than Wyke is to get him behind, and I think we are going to have to do a bit of counter attacking in this game. So it would make sense out of any of the options we've got to maybe bring off Wyke and have a Duajay and Armstrong up front.
Yeah,
even though they won't have played together, will they? They haven't played any minutes together yet.
Who? That's Wyke
Armstrong and Duajay.
No, they didn't actually. No, you're right. I think it's always been them subbed or he's not been involved. So yeah, and I think you're right there. Bench wise, we're thinking it's going to be Breeze, Ellis, Lavelle, or potentially, if not, it won't be Thomas, will it? It'll be someone else in for him. Maybe that's why Dudek comes in, possibly. Or it might be Fitzpatrick, actually, possibly, because he's back fit again, so he might be the extra defender they throw on there.
Yeah, or they might keep Allen or Hetherington on the bench.
I suppose as well, you're going to have, if you potentially having Barkley still in midfield, you've got your defensive cover there, haven't you? So it's not quite as bad. So yeah, we fully expect that. I think Dudek will go down as the extra man, probably, rather than Hetherington and Allen, because they can actually play for the youth team. That's the thing, whereas Dudek can't now. So it makes much more sense to take him for this one if he's not.
I wonder whether if there's a bit of a domino effect of if Thomas is unfit, whether that triggers them and goes right, just purely for option's sake. Barkley provides us a bit more versatility off the bench than Sadie does. So do we start him if if Thomas isn't available, just so they can either bring him on, obviously in defence if needs be, or bring him on in midfield if we need some more surety. I wonder whether that will be part of the thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think it's nice to have sort of some positive decisions to make in terms of the selection, rather than being like, who on earth are we going to fit in here and there? You actually, we've got options now. We've got a few little options to pick from. So that is good to see. Right, prediction time, and stop the count. Mike Booth is top of the prediction league after 3 games. The only person to have scored points, because he's the only one who guessed a 1-0 win last weekend. No one got the scorer. Even Dan, with his 8-0 win, didn't get any of the scorers. Which is just...
It's good to keep tradition.
Yeah, just ridiculous, isn't it? But there you go. So yes, Mike's the only one who scored points so far on 2 points. The rest of us are on 0. So Adam, what are you going to do to rectify that this weekend?
I am going to go for a 1-0 win like Mike did last week with a goal from the newly enthused Luke Armstrong.
Okay. I'm stuck between 1-1 or 2-1 to us, obviously. I'm going to go 2-1. Wake and Armstrong score the goals. That's my prediction for this weekend. Right, here's Mike's prediction for this weekend's game.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win with a goal from Charlie Wyke and one from Adawa J.
Okay, so nearly the same as mine. Just gone for one different goal scorer there. And here's Dan's prediction for this weekend's game.
Another tough away game early in the season. I'm not going to take much notice of MK's results so far. That Colchester game, they could have been out of sight before Colchester got the later goal. I'll be happy with a 1-1 draw here. And I'm going to go for Charlie Wyke to get off a mark.
I was very close to picking that myself, you know. That was what I was really close to, but I thought what you said about Luke Armstrong changed my mind. I was like, you know what, he's going to come off the bench absolutely flying and he's going to smash one in. So, yes, there you go. Right, that's our predictions for this weekend. Few little X-Files bits to wrap things up for the preview show. Midweek goals in the non-league. I've actually missed one off here that I'll add as well. Joe Riley, he scored. Have you seen the goal he scored?
I haven't.
Absolute belter. So Joe Riley scored an absolute belting goal for AFC Fylde. Sorry, I was looking right at it. AFC Fylde in their 1-1 draw at Oldham Athletic. So good results for him there. And I'm just trying to get up the Scarborough Athletic score because I didn't write it down. Well prepared as usual. Yes, so Richie Bennett scored for Scarborough Athletic in their 2-1 win at Chorley. Good result for them. I think they've had a decent start to the season in National League North, actually. Flying back up the league, Scarborough. And Stephen Rigg scored for Workington Reds as they got their first win under new boss Mark Fell at Prescott Cables in midweek with a 2-0 win. I was supposed to go to that game. I didn't make it in the end, unfortunately, so maybe I'm just a jinx and I probably shouldn't go in the future. But yeah, there you go. In terms of transfers and other bits, Gary Medine has finally recovered from his knee injury and he has signed for Hartlepool United. This is a coup, I think, for Hartlepool. What do you reckon?
I completely agree. It's only I know he's had a major, knee injury since, but it's only like 2 seasons ago now that he was in the Championship doing decent, It wasn't like he was completely off the pace, doing okay for, albeit a relegated team, but that level of striker for a non-league team is pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's like pretty impressive, isn't it? I'm trying to check out. I think it's a 1-year deal he's signed. I can't see the detail on the website as I'm looking up. I'm guessing it must be, but yeah, he's going to wear the number 9 shirt for them, and he famously scored a hat-trick for us there. Remember the day after he'd been in court.
Yes.
Which is going back a bit there now, isn't it? Matty Douglas, he was named in the SPFL Team of the Week after his goal-scoring heroics for them at the weekend for Queen of the South. And finally, Richard Keogh, he has stepped up to be the caretaker boss at Blackpool after Neil Critchley's sacking at the weekend. It's a weird one, Critchley, because he did so well in his first spell there, but he just hasn't been able to do it in the second spell, has he?
Well, apparently the Blackpool fans weren't particularly happy with him last season either.
No.
Obviously they had a lot of good players, but they didn't finish too close to the playoffs, really. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Keogh does there, how long he's in place for. But it's definitely a pressurised job for whoever gets it next.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. That's it for the previous show. I think that's everything wrapped up. Thanks once again, Adam, for joining me for this.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you once again to our sponsors, CUST, for their help this season. Upcoming episodes, we've got the Milton Keynes review, which will come early next week. We'll have a preview of the Tranmere game where Behind Enemy Lines will be returning, hopefully, if I can get a Tranmere fan. Because podcast-wise, I think they've only got one that's a Patreon-based podcast. They don't even have a normal one, for what I can say, which is a bit odd. We'll obviously review that game, and then there's a few specials that we're still in the process of sorting out, so hopefully we'll get them done soon. But yeah, that's it. Enjoy your bank holiday weekend, especially if you're making the long trip down to Buckinghamshire for the game. And most important of all, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
Carlisle United. us on the board. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play. Carlisle United, the team that's on the board. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way.
Be the heartbeat of Carlisle United. As the official supporters trust, wear your voice in the boardroom. Shape the club's future by participating in key decisions. Win prizes, including an exclusive boardroom experience, the chance to enjoy a match day in one of the new Andrew Jenkins stand lounges, and for our junior members, the chance to win signed merchandise. Enjoy 10% discount in the Blue Store, discount on trust merchandise, and ticket priority for big games. Join us today and be part of something special. Visit www.CUST.org.uk for details.